Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Esports Racing League presented by Spec Racer Sports, Alliance Autosport, and Grassroots Motorsports Magazine here on Apex Racing TV. And over the course of our 9-week regular season and then the winner-take-all championship known as the runoffs, we hope to bring you some of the best racing around in 3 different classes well known to club racers here in the United States. That's Spec Miata, Spec Racer Ford, and Formula 4. I'm Greg Ginsburg, and along with DJ Clark in the commentary booth, and of course, Jonathan Grabowski in the virtual production trailer, we're going to head tonight to the home of tradition, beauty, and speed. Opened in 1959 when life and road racing seemed so much more simple than today, tonight's venue features corners that may sound maybe a little bit generic. There's the uphill, there's the downhill, there are left and right handers, and then even one that until just a few months ago used to be called the no-name straight. But the racing is anything but generic, and tonight's drivers will navigate this 1.5-mile bull ring in less than a minute per lap. The only purpose-built road course on the National Register of Historic Places is the site of tonight's racing. It's Lime Rock Park. And as we do each and every week, we'll feature 2 20-minute sprint races. First on track will be the Spec Miatas, followed by the Spec Racer Fords, each contesting their 3rd races of this very young season. Our Formula 4 drivers, though, they're going to join us next week when we head from Connecticut to neighboring New York. And so, welcome back, DJ, after a few weeks away. It's great to see you back here for Lime Rock Park.
Well, it's fantastic to be back here for Lime Rock. This is one of my favorite venues in the entirety of the country, and to be able to see these MX-5s and the Spec Racer Fords be able to go around here, it's going to be some fantastic action. Not going to have to worry a lot about the aero wash that we would if we were to bring the the IRO 4s here, and so this is going to be, I think, a night of fantastic close side-by-side action.
It is, and it's a track that is very tight, it's very narrow, and we're running what is known as the GP circuit, which includes, I think we just had it on screen a second ago here, includes a small chicane at the very end of what is now called the Paul Newman Straight. It is the no-name straight no more. And as we sit on board right now with currently our provisional pole sitter, Kevin Langer, you'll see that chicane that breaks off just a little bit before you go into the uphill, and then it brings you there. So it's going to extract, I think, a little bit of speed from these racers, and it's certainly going to add another challenge. They're putting in a very difficult braking zone. And, you know, I think it's going to probably be a little bit more difficult for our Spec Racer Fords. They're going to have to worry about the weight transfer maybe more than our MX-5 Cup, our Spec Miata racers. But it'll certainly raise the stakes just a little bit here. And so we've got our drivers there out on a 15-minute qualifying session. They can fit in as many laps as they can, and over this very short track, you can turn a lot of laps at Lime Rock in 15 minutes, and it will be this qualifying session that will set the grid for tonight's race. It is a 20-minute run to the checker, as we do each and every week here in the Esports Racing League. Here, DJ.
Yeah, 20-minute run there, and that means that the overtaking opportunities are going to come at you fast and furious. I think you're really going to see some aggressive moves from these drivers to try to move their way up through the field, particularly if they don't get the best qualifying. And you mentioned that the uphill chicane, what that's really going to do is that's going to blunt the momentum of a lot of these drivers and frankly take away an opportunity to set up a better run coming down through West Bend in the diving turn and into your primary braking opportunity of Big Bend. So I think that's going to be something that really changes things up. It's a heavy braking zone, but it's not an overtaking zone. It truly is a one-way street right through that chicane.
Yeah, it is. There are so few opportunities to set up a pass here. It's usually taking advantage of miscues and mistakes from your fellow competitors. And as you mentioned, as the drivers really do have to jump on the brakes, and that chicane, it's not a portion of track where you're going to outbrake somebody and go side by side. It is still pretty much a one-lane track through that little section there, and it does make it much more difficult because in many cases it does take 3/4 of a lap, or at least half a lap, in order to set up a pass going down into turn 1, going into Big Bend. But let's quickly take a look here at our current qualifying. Your provisional pole sitter with now 9 laps in the books is Kevin Langer with a fast time of 1:17, and you can see him. He's just now coming off the pit lane, heading back out on track. Beans Forster in the number 231 machine. We saw Beans, who's actually looked like Beans was just getting some tires there on the 231 machine. There we go, some right side tires before he goes back out and tries to set a fast lap. Of course, he had a very adventurous weekend in our opener at Summit Point Raceway, did incredibly well at Sonoma Raceway and also Glen, pardon me, Road Atlanta. Actually, let's do this, DJ, real quick. As we've got our drivers out on track right now, let's quickly look back a week ago to our finish at Road Atlanta, and then also take a look at our point standings, and it's going to be after just 2 rounds in the books for our Spec Miata drivers. This is their 3rd race of the season. Taking the win in Spec Miata was Wan Chi Lin, with Beans Forster coming home in 2nd. Kevin Langer, our provisional pole sitter at the moment, finishing on the last step of the podium. Andrew Wozencroft and Deacon Greenfield rounding out the top 5. We had a couple of drivers, Justin Huffman, Murphy Nichols, Morgan Burkhardt, and Jamison Huffman. They were in the top 6, but got drive-through penalties due to too many off tracks on their very last lap of the race. Moved them all the way back to 10th, 11th, and 12th. So let's take a look at the points now, and as we bring them up on screen, your current points leader in Spec Miata is Beans Forster. He took the win in that opening round. He's had two top 5 finishes and currently leads by 17 points over Murphy Nichols from Smoketown Brewing. He's got 32 and is tied currently with Kevin Langer, so tie there for 2nd place. And well, you know what? It's a 3-way tie. I forgot Deacon Greenfield in the number 36 machine. So all 3 drivers at 32 points, and it is not until you get back now to Wan Chi Lin, last week's winner, who now moves up into to 5th position, having made up 16 positions in the championship after having a not the best of initial outings at Summit Point Raceway. So, and I think we've got one driver we're actually showing, and this is due to the fact that he wasn't out for he didn't come out for the first round at all. I think Andrew Wozencroft, making up 70 positions in the championship. So if there was a hard charger that early on in the season, I guess it would be Andrew Wozencroft. So there we go. We've got now about what, there are 2.5 minutes remaining in qualifying here, and it is still Langer and Forster, your top three. Skip Brock Jr. In the number 68 machine. He's your third fastest driver. I saw Skip just this past weekend at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta for the American Road Race of Champions. It was nice running into him. And Murphy Nichols, currently your fourth fastest driver, and Nagase Yoshikawa, fifth fastest. And, you know, as you are almost always guaranteed here, DJ, is you know, the drivers at least at the front of the field usually just within a couple thousandths of one another here, and we can see for example, between Forster and Brock, only 11 thousandths of a second separating them, but Langer, he's got a pretty good advantage on the rest of the field right now.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth there, Greg. I was going to say that it is pretty much standard fare from what we can see, running down from about second all the way to about 10th place. There was some pretty infinitesimal gaps, but Langer being able to pull out nearly 0.3 of a second there on the rest of the field, that's a little bit of a statement drive there for the number 17, and I'd be a little bit worried if I were the rest of the field. If he's able to escape the draft here, he's able to get out of the running behind or out in front of Beans Forrester, we could be in for a little bit of a domination up at the front of the field.
Yeah, and you know, and I'm wondering, you know, of course, he set that fast lap rather early on in the session, and I wonder if a lot of that had to do with the fact that he did not have to contend with any traffic on track here. Of course, having this open qualifying session where the racers are going to have to contend with the same type of traffic during qualifying, the same challenges in setting a fast lap in qualifying as they would in a race, certainly is a challenge if they find themselves, let's say, trapped behind a slightly slower car. And I mean, and slightly slower could be thousandths or hundredths of a second. There isn't much they can do other than come down the pit lane and try to find a better gap out on track.
Yeah, exactly. That's really one of the hard problems here running around Lime Rock. And I mentioned that draft that is helpful really in the run, pretty much from the backstretch all the way down into Big Bend. But once you get in through the S's, once you get in through that uphill chicane, having that car in front of you can really, really slow you down. So I think that could be the case here for Langer. We'll be cautiously optimistic, let's say, that there'll be a good race getting ready to play itself out for us.
All right, so we've got now, we've got no time left on the clock. We've hit that 15-minute mark, and we are now seeing the checkered flag out. Drivers are on their last flying laps of the session here. We'll see if we've got, looks like most of our drivers now either completing their laps, coming down the Sam Posey straight as we watch Stephen Blethyn in the 150 car. This is a track that he has a lot of experience in real life. I don't know how much, whoa! And somehow Blethyn didn't get collected there as a few of the last drivers come across the stripe. He's got a lot, I was gonna say, he's got a lot of experience at the real life Lime Rock Park. I'm not sure how much experience he has here in the virtual version as, well, there we go. Now we're seeing the black flag out. You know, I've never seen our starter throw the black flag in iRacing, but there you go, calling the drivers back to the pit lane, and we'll have our starting grid here in just a brief moment. Tell you what, while we're waiting for the grid to get set here, DJ, let me quickly talk about tonight's sponsor for this evening's first race, and that's Grassroots Motorsports Magazine. They are built for the true sports car enthusiast, and they've got one mission: to be your personal guide to the sports car world. Whether it's online at grassrootsmotorsports.com, in print or in person, the racers and builders, the car nerds at Grassroots, take you behind the scenes and show you how to make your car better. Along the way, they'll give you a taste of everything else this hobby has to offer, from 1,000 horsepower track monsters to cool street cars built in driveways. They also maintain a collection of staff-built project cars because hands-on articles, they're not typed behind a desk, they're scribbled down in the garage. To not only read but become part of the story, head on over to grassrootsmotorsports.com. All right, DJ, let's take a look at that starting grid for tonight. And starting on pole is going to be Kevin Langer. Pole time for him 1 minute 0.170. He's driving the number 17 machine. Beans Forster almost a quarter of a second off of that provisional pole time. Beans is going to start on the outside of row number 1, representing Team Watson Racing. Skip Brock Jr. He's going to start third tonight with Murphy Nichols starting on the outside of row number 2. Nagase Yoshikawa is going to start 5th tonight with Steve Blethyn starting in 6th. Charles Vaccaro is going to start on the inside of row number 4, right beside John Vogel. Then we've got Andrew Wozencroft and Deacon Greenfield. They'll make up your 5th row.
Then back in 11th, it's going to be Joshua Justice, followed by Jim Brewster in 12th place. 13th will be Charles Bowley, followed by Jeff Andrews. Then it's going to be Caleb Pocock, followed by Mark Sherman. Jaquin Effinger there in 17th. Then Camilleri in 18th, and Jamison Huffman will round out your 19-car grid here today.
Yeah, a little interesting to see Jamison Huffman there all the way at the back of the pack, and neither Joe Camilleri or Jamison Huffman have joined the fray as the pace car now bringing this 17, possibly 19 car field around the short pace lap here at Lime Rock Park, as we're going to be getting underway in just a few moments. Again, reminder that this is our first race of the evening. We'll be back soon after this completes with our Spec Racer Ford. Should be another great battle here from Lime Rock. But DJ, a little bit of a surprise there, not having Huffman head out on the pace lap, but maybe he will be starting from the back of the grid, try to work his way forward, which at Lime Rock will be tough. Now, you weren't here for this, but a couple weeks ago at Sonoma Raceway, we had Wan Chi Lin start at the tail end of the field in Spec Racer Ford, and at the end of 20 minutes, he was able to pass Beans Forster on the very last lap for the win. Even if Huffman gets underway to start 19th in the field here at Lime Rock, I think that would be maybe a bridge too far to be able to work up and battle for the lead here after only 20 minutes. But the pace car now bringing the field down through the downhill, and it moves over drivers right quickly, getting into the pit lane. And so our pole sitter, Kevin Langer, now has the field in that number 17 machine, and green flag is in the air as they make the short-ish run down towards Big Bend, down towards turns 1 and 2, and trying to jump down to the inside was the red and black machine of Skip Brock Jr. Cannot get it done, but going all the way around the outside at turn number 2, it is Beans Forster. He jumps to the early lead with Langer, our pole sitter, in second. Oh, and we have a wreck here, DJ.
And that looks to be Yoshikawa there, I think, spun around, falling back down through the fields. That's going to be very, very tough. It's Murphy Nichols also running into a little bit of problem as a result of that spin.
Yeah, so a couple of our drivers off from the front of the pack, falling back, and I think Charles Vaccaro in the 221 machine might have gotten caught up in that as well. But as our leaders now head towards West Bend, start to drop down that hill and go through the downhill, yeah, tell you what, let's take a look and see exactly what happened on that opening as our leaders coming through the downhill now.
Right, so keeping our eyes here on that number 98 machine, going to be going around the long way. Oh, looks like a little bit of contact there with Murphy Nichols. Both cars trying to compete for the same area of real estate there. Not sure if that was a little bit of a turn in or turn out there from Murphy or from Yoshikawa, but either way, both drivers coming out the wrong way.
That's right. All right. And it looks like Vaccaro was just collateral damage there as Yoshikawa went around. As we jump back to the live action, as our leaders now coming out of the right-hander onto the brand new, looks like Andrew Wozencroft now in the number 80 machine is off in the grass. He's going to drop all the way back to 15th position as he was coming through the left-hander. Already a lot of off-track excursions for these drivers on what again is a very tight course here. And you know, as we've seen, DJ, and I think we talked about this in week one that with some of the changes that were made to the MX-5s, or at least the tire model for them in this virtual season, it really is absolutely critical to get some heat in those tires, maybe on the pace lap, and maybe to take things a little easy in the first lap or so. And we'll see here as our leaders now starting to stretch things out.
Yeah, starting to stretch things out a little bit, as we thought potentially, although I am a little bit surprised here to see Kevin Langer falling back down through the field. It's Beans Forrester that's actually the one pulling the gap here at this point. Not entirely what I would have expected, but he is crucially able to be up there by almost a full second. Langer, whoa, is that Brock going off wide and hitting Langer?
And they get collected, and I was just going to say that Skip Brock, who was very aggressive on the opening lap, and then managed to get around our pole sitter Langer, and you saw as he went into the chicane there, he went to avoid the first set of bollards there, and as he went and was offline coming through the second half of the chicane, the car just came around. Maybe we'll hopefully we'll get to see a replay of that in just a moment, but that is once again, and I think we've got the replay ready to hear, GJ. Let's take a look.
Yeah, coming up here, and we haven't really talked about the big turtles here on the inside of this. Let's see. Yeah, he just carried a little bit too much speed there at that point, and coming into the third part of the chicane, just caught that turtle a little bit wrong on the right side of the car. That's going to throw off the weight balance, and that was enough to spin him around and get him into contact there with Kevin Langer.
Yeah, and Langer, of course, coming almost to a dead stop there, ends up giving up a number of positions. And what does this do? This elevates Stephen Blethen now up into second position, moves him from sixth all the way to second. He's got Deacon Greenfield, who's now picked up 7 positions since the start of this race, in third. And Greenfield there challenging Blethen coming through the downhill. And Greenfield now takes over the second spot, and John Vogel, he's got visions of getting around Blethen as well, as he comes down deep to the inside, going into Big Ben, and move John Vogel now up into third, as well as he started 8th tonight. So just in the matter of about 4 turns, we have Stephen Blethen in the 150 machine dropping from second now down to 4th. But in all of this, we were talking, DJ, about Beans Forster, who did jump out to that early lead, who did start to, within 2 laps, start to gap the rest of the field. And with Langer and with Brock going around over at that chicane so early on, Beans Forster now opening up almost a 5-second advantage, a little bit over 5 seconds on the rest of the field.
Yeah, that is absolutely monstrous around such a short track here like Lime Rock Park. And the only thing I'd have to be worried about here if I was in Beans Forrester's position was catching around to the back of the field and running into some traffic, as we've got a little bit of side-by-side.
Yeah, and here we go, coming down into turn 1 into Big Ben. We've got Charles Vaccaro now side-by-side with Josh Justice. Justice runs a little wide going into Big Ben, but he manages to come back across the nose of Vaccaro. And then our pole sitter, Kevin Langer, in that black number 17, and with the purple wheels locked right in behind him. That is currently the battle for 5th.
Yeah, currently the battle for 5th that we watch right now, and it's really a 3-car battle there as the 99 starts to lead away. We've got another 3-car battle here between Brewster and the rest of the pack, as that's also Murphy Nichols trying to fight his way back through.
Yeah, as Murphy Nichols trying to work his way back up, currently sitting in 10th position. He's got Brewster and he's got Bailey, both drivers who have picked up 4 positions since the start. A lot of that owing to some of the argy-bargy early on in this race. But I think as Murphy Nichols is finding, it is very difficult to get by. You do absolutely need to be able to pull a draft coming out of the downhill, going down into turn 1, just as Charles Bailey in that pink number 63 is doing now. He's going to jump to the inside of Brewster, as is Murphy Nichols with a late lunge down in the Big Ben. Murphy Nichols now moves up into 9th position, having started in 4th. And he's got a heck of a recovery drive ahead of him as we now look to the battle just ahead. And it is the 99 of Justice. It's the 221 of Vaccaro. It's the 17 again, our pole sitter tonight, Langer, and we see there is Justice having some issues with the chicanes and hitting those huge turtles, and was thought he might have gotten a slowdown there, but it doesn't look like it as he continues on through the downhill, and he's actually starting to make up some ground on Blethen as well.
Yeah, he's starting to close down there, and you read my mind about that slowdown. I was very, very concerned that he may fall into that position, but Blethen right now just trying to hold on to the back here of Vogel if he can. Oh, a little bit of a move here from Vaccaro down to the inside. That's going to force Justice off and into the grass.
Yeah, and Justice had gone very deep into turn one on the previous lap. He was able to recover that time, not so much as he grabs a little bit of grass, and that allows both Vaccaro by and Langer by, and it also now brings Murphy Nichols, who's gotten around Charles Bailey, and as well as Bailey and Brewster, up into that fight as well. So things starting to tighten up here, DJ, whereas we had two different three-car packs. They're starting to actually compress down and get together. And a great move by Murphy Nichols getting around Justice, going down into the chicane. It looks like Bailey's going to try that move as well, going through the downhill.
He's going to try it. Going to be side by side there, carrying a little bit more momentum around the outside. Is going to be Joshua Justice, and it looks like Bailey's not going to be able to get that done, but we may see a little bit of a poke to the inside here going down into Big Bend. No, he's going to stay back in line. A little bit surprised by that. I would have thought he had the overspeed to be able to do that, but clearly just waiting. But they've got to be careful. That's Brewster coming up behind them as well. Each and every one of these battles, it looks like every time you look away, there's more coming on.
There's more, and Caleb Pocock in the 88 machine has kind of been sitting on an island unto himself for quite some time, but he's starting to make up a little bit of ground and close in on that group just ahead, as well as you can see here under braking going into the chicane. Having those three cars all have to brake in succession allows Pocock to make up some ground.
Yeah, Pocock being able to close on in. We've got another battle up for second, though. Deacon Greenfield and John Vogel starting to close in a little bit.
There we go as they come out of the downhill, go into turn number one. Vogel closing things down just a little bit on Deacon Greenfield. And when we talk about how close the racing can be and how difficult it can be to get around, John Vogel that last time was all of 17 hundredths of a second faster than Deacon Greenfield. But again, it really, all these drivers are very close proximity. Stephen Blethen there, who's sitting in that blue and green machine back behind Vogel. He was actually the fastest of the three, but look at this. On his way back up to the front of the field, Kevin Langer now sitting in fifth. He gets around Charles Vaccaro and is, I believe, at the moment, no, he's not the fastest driver on track. Beans Forster by far, who just turns in a 1 minute .68, is your fastest driver currently on track.
Yeah, as we watch in on this battle right now, here they come, trying to see if there's going to be a little bit of a close here. It does look like Vogel's got a little bit of that draft coming down into the corner. He's going to take a look down to the inside. That's not going to play itself out as they continue to play it out here on the battle for third, now looking very good.
You know, and you know, DJ, we'll have to see where Beans Forster is, because he may start coming up onto the back of the pack rather soon. He's now opened up almost an 8.5 second advantage over the rest of the field, and from the looks of it, and thank you so much, John, who throws up the track map so we can see where all of our drivers are. It looks like Forster, for the moment, he's just gonna have to keep his head down and you know, concentrate, because he's got nobody ahead of him. Next driver up the line is going to be Jeff Andrews, who's just now going into the left-hander.
Yeah, so definitely some space there, but this battle, that almost looks there a little bit like John Vogel was maybe attempting to do a little bit of a bump draft, and here it comes down the start-finish straightaway down the Samposi Straight. Bump draft turning into a pass.
There we go, as Vogel now moves to the inside, and I don't think Deacon Greenfield knew how to handle that. He actually moved all the way over driver's left, which opened the door up for the number 4, and Greenfield has continued to leave him a lot of room coming through Big Bend, and now as they go into the left-hander where he has position, he manages to hold off the number 4 for the time being, but just behind Greenfield and Vogel, Stephen Blethyn hanging on for dear life in that blue and green number 150 machine, as he's got Murphy Nichols and Kevin Langer jockeying for position right behind him. And Blethyn, probably the best thing that could have happened to him was to have Murphy Nichols trying to hold off the 17 of Langer as they came through the left-hander and the right-hander.
Yeah, very much so. You want to see those battles play out if you are Blethyn. You want to get that attack off of your rear bumper as we jump back up on board here with Deacon Greenfield. Vogel again trying for another look here.
And here he goes, Vogel once again going to the outside. He's going to try to come underneath the number 36 machine, and Greenfield, very good car positioning that time by, does not open up any kind of room for the number 4 machine, and may have actually picked up about a half a car length there as he comes through center of track. But now once again, as they came through the left-hander and the right-hander and go down Paul Newman straight, we've got a 5-car battle for second place here, as Blethyn sitting right in the middle of the sandwich between Murphy Nichols and Kevin Langer, who are on board right now with the number 5 machine.
Yeah, and Murphy here has been able to catch up to the back. Now the question is if he's going to be able to get the run here. Ooh, a little bit offline from Stephen Blethyn, maybe a preemptive defensive move there, but that's going to put Murphy now a little bit offline. Let's see here if he's going to be able to pick up a little bit of the draft. No, that's going to be now Langer who's going to muscle his way on by.
Yeah, and Langer coming down all the way down the outside, and as Blethyn moves over to cover for the number 5 machine, Langer for a moment looked like he might sneak by driver's left, as we now have Vogel and Greenfield side by side coming through Big Ben, and Vogel took him 2 laps, but he gets it done. He's now up into second, moved Greenfield in the 36 machine back into 3rd position overall, with Blethyn continuing to hold off both Nichols and Langer. And yeah, and I think you're right, DJ. I think as he came through West Bend and started to make the way to the downhill, I think Stephen Blethyn was preemptively trying to hold off and maybe force Nichols to the outside as they came through the downhill. We'll see if he does the same thing again here.
Well, it worked out pretty well, although there was a little bit of contact there between the two. Doesn't look like he's going to need to here at this point. And, oh, that's going to be Greenfield going a little bit wide. That's going to open up the opportunity here for Blethyn down to the inside. He's going to get a good run. And if he's going to be able to be good on the binders here, I think that'll be moved done and dusted.
And here we go as they come in side by side, and we'll see Greenfield was very good holding off the car to the inside a couple laps ago when we had John Vogel try that same move. But now indeed Stephen Blethyn, he's going to move himself up into 3rd, and now Murphy Nichols, who should have position coming into the right-hander. He cannot get by the 36 machine yet. Maybe a little rub there at the quarter panels as they come into the chicane. Nichols to the inside, Greenfield to the outside, maybe a little bit more contact there, but they get through, and Greenfield, at least for the moment, has been able to hold off the number 5 machine. Kevin Langer sitting at the tail end of that line. I don't know what to say for Kevin Langer. There just isn't anywhere for him to go here at Lime Rock when you have 2 cars door to door, side by side, directly in front of you.
No, and he's doing a good job of really exhibiting some good patience here at this point,
Yes.
although it looks like he got a bad run coming off at the last corner. Trying to see what they are able to do as they dive in. Is Nichols going to have a little bit of a look here? Yes, he is.
And there we go. Nichols gets underneath Deacon Greenfield. So let's move the 36 machine now back in the 5th. Move the 5 machine up into 4th position. He might have, that way we'll see if he can take a go at the 150 of Stephen Blethyn, something that Greenfield had not been able to do. But Nichols has shown very good pace. Remember, Nichols was in that opening lap incident, dropped all the way back into, I believe it was 9th position. He now finds himself in 4th. And with now only 4 minutes remaining, only about a little bit under 4 laps to go, Murphy Nichols, he's in good position to put that number 5 machine back on the podium.
Yeah, he certainly is, and he's really impressing me here. He's being aggressive, which is something that we talked about that he needed to do, and really all of these drivers needed to do. Oh, I can't tell if that was an aggressive move there, if that was just trying to hold control of the car, but one way or the other, here comes Murphy Nichols up into P3.
All right, as Nichols goes now under braking, indeed, he now has the lead. And yeah, it looked like Greenfield, as he came out of the downhill, might have been just trying to gather the car back up, shot back across. I don't know if it was a defensive move or not, but Nichols very quick to respond to that loss of pace from the 36 machine, and now sits in third position, back behind John Vogel, the number 4 machine, who has managed to open up just the smallest of gaps back to the rest of the field here as they come into the chicane with only 2.5 minutes remaining. And so likely, depending on where our leader is, probably only 3 laps to go at most.
Yeah, it's really going to depend on where Forster is up at the front of the field as Beans crosses over the line right there. Looks like that is going to be 3 to go if my math is right, but never trust a commentator's math.
No, and as everybody knows, I flunked out of engineering school because I can't do simple math in my head. So, but we're thinking 3 now. Murphy Nichols coming to the inside on John Vogel, gets run to the dirt, but Vogel's now going to run wide going through Big Bend, and Murphy Nichols, he moves now up into second position as for a moment there it looked like they were both going to end up in the wall, drivers right going down Sam Posey straight, but Murphy Nichols takes advantage, now moves back up into second position, move John Vogel into third, and the question is going to be, can Stephen Blethyn, can Deacon Greenfield, can Kevin Langer find a way to get up to John Vogel for that last step on the podium?
Well, that's going to be the real question here, and I'm going to be keeping my eye as they come through West Bend and down through the diving turn. That's been the setup point for so many moves on this race as they go. Another good battle a little bit farther back in the field between Bailey, Justice, and Brewster.
And as they are all nose to tail coming down the downhill, and that is the battle for 8th position. And we've seen these pockets of 3 cars at a time. These 3 have been together now for about the last 5 laps as Justice coming down to the inside he does not make the pass. We can let you know that right now. But Murphy Nichols seems to have separated himself out from John Vogel. But here we go, Kevin Langer trying to make the move as time is running down on Deacon Greenfield, and Langer now moving up into 5th position, gets around Deacon Greenfield. So Greenfield, who had been as high as 2nd, and Greenfield returning I'm sorry, that's Blethyn, pardon me, with Kevin Langer, as we're now 2 by 2 going through West Bend as they come down the hill, and this might all come to tears as everything tightens up here at the downhill turn as they roll out of there. It is Murphy Nichols in the number 5. He's currently running 2nd. Then Stephen Blethyn in the 150 machine. He now is going to try to hold off Kevin Langer, our pole sitter tonight, as we are working the final lap here at Lime Rock in the Spec Miata race, or Mazda Global MX-5 Cup cars. All right, here as we now have, again, this is the battle for 3rd, and we've got Stephen Blethyn in the number 150 car. He drives this course all the time in real life. Kevin Langer in the 17 right behind. Oh, and dropping wheels, going off track. John Vogel in the number 4 machine. He manages to gather it back up, and as Deacon Greenfield tries to find a way around the number 4, he just runs out of track space. All right, and coming down the front straight, taking the win, Beans Forster. And wow, DJ Beans, just when he doesn't have anybody around him, opens up a heck of a gap. I think almost 16 seconds as they come through the downhill for the final time.
And it looks like this battle is going to start to separate itself out there. Murphy Nichols is going to be able to hold on to 2nd. It does look like Blethyn, Langer, Greenfield, and Vogel. That's going to be your finishing order there in that very, very tight battle.
Wow, and as we jump back a little bit further, Charles Vaccaro, he's going to come home in 7th, and that battle we were watching between Justice, Bailey, and Brewster, Bailey manages to hold off Justice on the last lap, the 99 car, not able to find a way around the 63, and so Bailey Pardon me. So, well, actually, we're showing Justice as having got around him on the last lap. I thought that was actually after they crossed the line, but we'll call it Justice in 8th, Bailey in 9th, Brewster in 10th.
And talk about a great bit of running there. Some close battles up and down through the field.
Oh my gosh, yes, and that last fight that we saw coming down the hill, the battle for third position with Blethen, with Langer, and John Vogel at the time. Didn't know there was going to be a way for all three of them to actually come on to Samposi all together, but somehow they made it work. Great battle there, and Beans Forster jumps out to that early lead, and well, tell you what, we've got Beans sitting in the interview room, DJ. Let's bring him in. He can tell us all about it.
Yes, indeed. Beans Forrester, a little bit of a close run at the beginning, but once you got up into the lead, my goodness, you scampered off into the distance.
I was feeling pretty consistent going through qualifying. I gave Kevin a tow for qualifying, and right at the beginning, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to top that.
Well, so what was your strategy then, knowing that you were going to be on the back foot from qualifying a little bit? Were you kind of hoping to see some of that disadvantage for other drivers coming in front of you, or were you expecting a little bit more of a street fight?
Well, I know they say you can't win it in turn one, but I knew I had to get around them, because starting on the outside is pretty bad here. So I got around him, and then I saw that incident happen coming out of the chicane, and I was just kind of cruising to the end. So I think I got a little bit of luck there.
Well, you got a little bit of luck in that, and you got a great bit of pace throughout the rest of the race. As you continued on, did you have any moments where you were afraid at all? I'm sorry we didn't really feature you too much, because you were just up front and cruising.
Yeah, I was just trying to make sure that I didn't get any off tracks. I was trying to keep a nice, comfortable pace, and I had a few hairy moments there, just kind of dozing off a little bit, and but I kept it all together. Got some bonus points.
Well, you got some good bonus points, and we're, of course, not done for the night yet, but who makes this possible? Who would you like to thank here for a win in the MX-5s?
Just all you guys, everyone here that makes this all possible.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Beans, and we won't keep you too long, and good luck in the next race.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, there you go. Beans Forrester, driver of the number 231 machine, taking the win tonight in our first race of the evening. And that means we've got one more to go. DJ, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Thank some of our partners and sponsors. And when we come back, we'll have qualifying and our 20-minute run to the checkered flag for our Spec Racer Fords here in season number 7 of the Esports Racing League, the Fall Tour. We'll be right back. And we're back here at Lime Rock Park for the Ray Esports Racing League's Fall Tour, season number 7. I'm Greg Ginsberg along with DJ Clark. And on track now, our Spec Racer Fords, as they are out for their 15-minute qualifying session rather early on in the session, as I believe we only have one driver that's set a time so far. That is the car we're watching right now. That is Jim Brewster in the number 933 machine. As everybody else will be looking to improve upon that 59.35 as he throws down the gauntlet here just a few moments in. DJ, as we have our drivers starting to set lap times and try to set the grid for tonight's second 20-minute race of the evening, let's quickly look back once again to Road Atlanta and our class that is not joining us here this evening. That's the Formula 4s, or the iRacing IR04s, where Jamison Huffman took the win. He started on the outside of the front row, beat his teammate Morgan Burkhardt, who was our pole sitter, and they finished 1-2. Beans Forster came home, took the last step on the podium with John Vogel and Deacon Greenfield rounding out your top 5. And this was last week was their second race of the season, and with 2 races in the books, Beans Forster is currently your championship leader with 42 points. Ray Blethen and Justin Huffman are currently tied for second, 15 points back with 27, and then a single point back from there, DJ Alessandrini, who went to a rather easy win in the very first race of the season at Sonoma Raceway. We've talked to DJ. It might be one and done for him this season. We'll try to get him back if we can, but he is currently sitting 4th in the championship, while Jamison Huffman, now coming off of that race win, sitting 5th in the championship currently. And if we then take a look at Spec Racer Ford, I talked about that race at Sonoma. That was the last time that they were on track, where Wanchi Lin started 13th and in 20 minutes managed to work his way up to the front of the field and take the win, with Beans Forster. He sets a theme here. Beans Forster coming home in second. He was not your pole sitter. He started on the outside of the front row, but he came in second. And then Justin Huffman, who was the pole sitter and races a Formula Enterprises 2 Formula car in real life, he came home in third. And then Jim Brewster, Charles Vaccaro, 4th and 5th. And if we take a look at the championship standings now, with 2 races in the books for the Spec Racer Fords, again tonight will be race number 3. Wanchi Lin, with a win and 2 top 5s, will include a win and a top 5, is currently your points leader with 45. He's got a 5-point advantage over Beans Forster. Charles Vaccaro, Justin Huffman, Stevie Ray round out the top 5. And I don't know, let's see, Stevie Ray did make it home from work in time. He was on the drive home when we started the Spec Miata race, but I think, well, let's see, is he in the field? No, he is not in the field. Nope, did not make it home in time. He normally works on Tuesday evenings for Southwest Airlines out in Tejas, doing simulation work, and unfortunately not able to join us here for round number 3.
Yeah, that's a real unfortunate thing to not see Stevie Ray be in the field. But as we continue to look our way around, watching Deacon Greenfield right now making his way down the Samposi Straight. Going to be a big change here, I think, in these Spec Racer Fords. Is there we see Deacon Greenfield locking it up a little bit coming down into turn 1. But I think the biggest change we're going to see is up through the uphill chicane here, Greg.
Yes.
You are not going to be able to take nearly as much curb. These cars have a lot stiffer suspension, and if you really get over those turtles, it's really going to throw you off.
Yeah, it is. It might be race over, but certainly it will put you around. And I think even coming into the chicanes, DJ, where of course weight transfer, I mean, it's absolutely key that you're very smooth with your pedal applications, moving from brake to throttle here, and with all the weight transfer very quickly moving from a threshold brake, turning the car in, trying to get back to throttle, going into the chicane. We may see these rear-engine Spec Racer Fords exhibit maybe a little bit more twitchiness than we saw in the MX-5s in our last race.
Yeah, I think you're completely right about that. And I mean, this is a circuit here as we get a great onboard with Joshua Justice. You can see just what we're talking about coming up through the uphill. You really have to be careful and thread that needle. But let's not also forget that the twitchiness that they're going to be exhibiting across the entire track, to be quick, to be aggressive around here, you've got to really go over some of the gray curbing, and that's going to initiate a little bit of weight transfer in these cars. And so you've got to be very careful with that right foot, getting onto the throttle, making sure you don't spin up those rear tires.
Yeah, and and perhaps it's a little bit easier now that the Spec Racer Fords, they're running that Gen 3 configuration with the SADEV sequential transmission. They don't necessarily for upshifts have to go and go to the clutch, and perhaps maybe use a little bit of trail braking when necessary into some of these corners. Of course, the majority of these corners, as we know, DJ, you're accelerating through. There are very few places on this track where you need to or where you want to scrub off speed. So we'll see how this plays out. But now, as we're just a little bit over halfway through qualifying, Beans Forster, he is your provisional pole sitter. Fast time for him, a 58.47. Jim Brewster, who was our fastest driver right out of the gates, well, he's just been eclipsed by John Vogel. Vogel now going to second fastest with a 58.63. And so just about 15 hundredths of a second or so separating Beans Forster from John Vogel. Moved Brewster now back to third fastest. Charles Vaccaro, who runs, much like John Vogel, runs a Spec Racer Ford in real life, currently your fourth fastest driver at a 58.99. But we'll add Josh Justice in there as well in the number 99 machine. We saw him run pretty well in the MX-5s. He is a Spec Racer Ford driver out of Texas. So we'll see how our native Spec Racer Ford drivers handle this course here tonight.
Yeah, we'll have to see indeed. And Greg, looking at the times here, this is a little bit more of what I was expecting for these qualifying times. Things are very, very close. We're talking about 1/10 of a second, 2/10 of a second, very infinitesimal gaps here. Ooh, as we watch Joshua Justice getting it a little bit wrong there, coming down out of the diving turn, and he's going to have to gather everything back up, and that will invalidate his lap. But some very, very close running here. We talked about the big gap at the front of the field in the last race. Not necessarily seeing it here today.
No, and as we see the 300ths of a second difference between Vogel and Brewster right now. And moving up through the order, Antonio Rice now with a 58.88, so about 22 hundredths of a second off of Jim Brewster, now fourth fastest, as he runs slightly faster than Charles Vaccaro. And Murphy Nichols making his presence known after that great run as he found himself on the second spot of the podium in the Spec Miata's 58.84 or 58.843. And I guess here at Lime Rock, maybe the going all the way to the thousandths of a second actually does make a difference. But he is now your fourth fastest driver as we have just a little bit more than 4 minutes remaining.
Yeah, and going down to that the thousandths of a second certainly is going to be crucial. Oh, and that's exactly what we were talking about a little bit earlier from Murphy Nichols. Just that little bit of a touch on those big turtles on the inside, and that is enough to throw that number 5 into an absolute tailspin. Yeah,
there you go. As he got the right rear wheel, or probably the left rear wheel, over one of the turtles, it just lifts the car up and will send it around. And not much better if you go over them with the front tires either. It definitely will do quite a bit of damage to these cars. And so as we now watch Antonio Rice, now he manages to turn in a lap faster than John Vogel. So move Antonio Rice now up into second. But Vogel, as we have a couple more cars going around through the chicane there, spinning the car around, Vogel returns the favor, and not only does he outrun Antonio Rice, but Jim Brewster does as well. John Vogel now with a 58.51. He is now only as Forster sets a new fast lap, still about 4 hundredths of a second off of Forster's time. Brewster now with a 58.54, 3 hundredths off of John Vogel.
Yeah, times are absolutely infinitesimal up at the top of the field. I mean, look at that. It's really only separated by about 7/100ths of a second there first, all the way back down into third place as we take a look here on Yoshikawa, trying to be able to carry some good speed up through the chicanes. Currently sat back down in about 4th or 5th place right now. Yes, you can see, I love this angle. You can really, really tell here just how much wheel you're having to put into the car and just how far off to the side of the track you have to take it to try to maximize that momentum all the way around.
Yeah, and it's so clear there from watching Yoshikawa come through the diving turn where he uses every last inch of the curbing. And we saw earlier where Josh Justice put the car off coming out of that turn and went through the grass. And you know, that's a spot here because of the layout of this track and frankly how short the Sam Posey straight is. If you go off at the diving turn, not only one is it going to invalidate your times on the current lap, but you're going to lose so much speed heading down in the into Big Bend, pardon me. You're essentially tossing away 2 different laps here in qualifying. So you know, there really is that impetus, that need to stay clean and keep the car on track.
Yeah, especially here in qualifying. And for those unfamiliar with the way that iRacing works is if you pick up those off tracks, if you get what we like to call a 1X or a 1 incident point, it'll actually invalidate your entire lap. So it's very, very crucial that you stay clean and green for that reason. And then once we get into the race, we already talked about some of the problems that can really arise if you start to move off the track a little bit. You're going to find yourself in a world of trouble.
Yeah, and here now is we have still about a minute and a half remaining in qualifying. Watching Deacon Greenfield in the 36 machine is as Yoshikawa now in the 98 machine goes to pole, DJ, putting in a 58.42, and that is just an absolutely monumental, huge jump over the rest of the field, very much like what we saw with Langer in the Spec Miata race a little while ago here, as he now puts in almost 1/1300ths of a second on Beans Forster in the 231 machine, and Forster's sitting on the pit lane. We'll see if he can respond as John Vogel now sets second fastest lap, only 3/300ths of a second off of Yoshikawa.
Yeah, very, very close there. Again, these very, very close margins. I think this is going to lead to an absolutely fantastic race here. We saw the MX-5s put on an absolute display. I think we are in tune for just the same kind of result here from these Spec Racer Fords.
As we watch John Vogel now on what should be his very last flying lap. We only have about 15 seconds remaining here on the clock before the checkered flag comes out. Just a few more turns as he comes through West Bend and starts to run down the hill, coming onto the Sam Posey straight. Let's see if he can beat the 58.42. And he's going to need to pick that up as Antonio Rice goes to second fastest. And John Vogel at a 58.60 does not improve as Antonio Rice on his last flying lap. There's the 914 machine moving up onto the front row.
Yeah, very impressive stuff there from Antonio Rice. That's definitely going to be a feather in the cap of the number 914 as they take a little bit of an excursion there going over the grass, but obviously the qualifying lap already done and dusted there for them. Not seeing a whole lot of other drivers being able to complete a fast lap here. I think our grid is just about set.
All right, and here we go as Murphy Nichols once again finds a way to impact the wall. That's all the way down at the end of turn 1. Looks like he and his teammate Deacon Greenfield having a little fun before we get gridded up for tonight's final race of the evening. And you know, we haven't mentioned it, but if you like what you see here tonight, if you've enjoyed the action, please remember, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to Apex Racing TV, go ahead and hit that big red button, click on the notification bell, and that way you can find out about all the times Apex Racing TV goes live with great virtual motorsports action from around the world every single day. As we watch now is Josh Justice on his final flying lap, I believe. We'll see if he can improve. No, and matter of fact, he had already crossed the stripe, and he is now done. All of our drivers are now done, and we've got the grid forming up. DJ, why don't you give us our starting order?
Right, well, it's going to be Yoshikawa leading us to the field here in the number 98. Then it's going to be Antonio Reese there in the number 914, flanking him to the outside. John Vogel will start off fourth, followed by Beans Forster. Then it's going to be Jim Brewster and Murphy Nichols in row 3, with Joshua Justice and Deacon Greenfield in row 4. Charlie Vaccaro and Andrew Rosencroft will round out your top 10. Then in 11th, it's Stephen Blethen, followed by Mark Sherman in 12th place. 13th is going to be Thomas Frohnling, and then Caleb Pocock and Effinger will round out your 15-car grid.
All right, so we've got everybody on the grid with one small exception. That is the number 4 machine of John Vogel. We see that big open spot there next to the 231 car. We'll see if John Vogel appears before this pace lap starts, or whether he's going to have to start from the pit lane. But while we watch that view, let's talk about our sponsor, and there he is. Let's talk about our sponsor for tonight's second race of the evening, and that is Spec Racer Sports. And their mission is to help fuel and support your addiction to road racing. And they feel that the way to accomplish this is by providing exceptional customer support, the parts and services you need when you need them at a fair competitive price. Located trackside at Motorsports Ranch Houston, Spec Racer Sports currently stables Spec Racer Fords and offers exceptionally prepared rental cars in addition to new cars for sale, and they also offer storage and support. They offer technical services in addition to that, such as chassis dyno work, driver coaching, as well as fabrication, and they are all offered at very competitive rates. To find out more about Spec Racer Sports and their services, visit specracersports.com. All right, so we've got the pace car now underway with our pole sitter Nagase Yoshikawa just about ready to drive through the back of that Porsche 911. Both he and Antonio Rice here will be our front row, and just got word that Rice, who runs in another one of the Ray Sports leagues, the Weekend Warriors League, is almost finished last season as the Masters Class champion. So not to say that much like Wan Chi Lin, bit of a Spec Racer Ford ringer, but we'll see how he does here tonight against Yoshikawa, John Vogel. We've got so many real-life Spec Racer Ford racers here in the field, as the pace car brings the field now onto the Sam Posey straight. It moves over to the right onto the pit lane, and Yoshikawa now has the field as we wait for the green flag. Had an early green last race, and there we go. Green flag is in the air, and Yoshikawa jumps out to an early lead as Rice jumps in behind him very quickly, but the number 4 machine of Vogel deep on the brakes. He's driver's right. Rice is the driver's left as they come through Big Bend. Moving up into third, probably in the 4th, is Beans Forster. Then we've got Brewster, Murphy Nichols falling back in the 6th, then Justice and Greenfield. But as they come through Big Bend, it is your leader, Yoshikawa. Rice now manages to slot in ahead of John Vogel, keep him in 3rd, then Forster, then Brewster as they go through the chicane for the first time, DJ.
And we'll have to see if there's any incidents or accidents here that fly out as, that is a lot of movement there from behind from Rice, trying to see if he's able to get anything. We focus a little bit farther back. Brewster under pressure here from Murphy Nichols. The top 4, starting to build a little bit of a breakaway, and they're going to be hoping to keep Yoshikawa in their sights. Right on board with Beans. He's going to take a little bit of look to the inside. 3 wide coming down the Sam Posey straight.
3 wide as Rice is in the center, and our leader Yoshikawa all the way to driver's right as John Vogel late on the brakes. He gets into the grass, does not make the turn. He's going to lose a number of positions, but Antonio Rice, he is your new leader. Beans Forster, move him back into 2nd. Then Yoshikawa, he drops now down into 3rd as Brewster sits in 4th, and then we've got a gap back to our 2nd group led by Murphy Nichols, Josh Justice, as we drop a little bit further back, and we can see where John Vogel goes from the top 3 now in the 10th. Let's take a look at the replay and see exactly what happened here, DJ.
Well, I think you called it pretty much right. He was involved in this 3 wide, a little bit of a bump up ahead there to Reese as they came down into the corner, and I think because of that car in front of him, he just tried to get a little bit too greedy, missed his braking zone. You can see that right front tire locking up, and that was enough to send him out into the grass.
Yeah, I know, and there it looked like Yoshikawa almost very close to getting into the back of the number 4 as he came across. Josh Justice having some problems going through the downhill, and Justice now sitting in 6th position just ahead of Murphy Nichols, manages to hold off, probably right behind Murphy Nichols, manages to hold off the 36 machine of Deacon Greenfield as we look here the battle between Brewster and right behind Murphy Nichols. And here Brewster holds off Nichols, sitting in 4th currently, Nichols sitting in 5th.
Yeah, and it looks like Nichols is being pretty aggressive here, trying to push around. That's another off in the back there for Vogel. He's having a terrible, terrible day of it all here at Lime Rock.
Yeah, and we can see here is Vogel now all the way up to the Armco, coming out of the right-hander, and Vogel now falls to Taylor and Charlie in the field. 15th position after having started 3rd tonight. Let's take a look at the replay, see what happened again to John Vogel.
Looks like he's coming up behind. He does have a little bit of damage there in front of him. That's a blink from the 150 of Blethen. Does he get in a little bit of contact? Oh, I think he just had a little bit of target fixation. He was focused on Blethen in front of him, and that just caused him to run that hair wide. And we talked about what can happen if you do that when you get off into the grass in these Spec Racer Fords.
That's right. You hit that grass, it almost turns into ice, and it looked like maybe a quarter of that left rear tire extended beyond the curbing into the grass, and around he goes as we jump back to the battle for the lead with Rice, Forster, and Nagase Yoshikawa, our top 3. And you can see now sitting in 4th, Murphy Nichols, who has gotten around Jim Brewster, sitting about 5-6 car lengths back. And, you know, the more our leaders battle here, and we know how aggressive Beans Forster can be as he comes down the downhill side by side with Rice. That's only going to bring that second pack right into the battle, as once again, well, we can't have 4 wide since we only have 3 cars, but we've got Yoshikawa pushing Antonio Rice down the inside lane, try to get an advantage on the 231 machine as they come through Big Bend.
Yeah, and I think that was a little bit of a wide run there for Yoshikawa, but he's able to gather it back up under him and work his way through the left-hander. Is he going to be able to get the clearance? No, a little bit of contact there between himself and Beans Forrester, and that's going to cause Yoshikawa to drop back a little bit. Got to be careful here. You don't want to be too wide coming up through the chicane, and it looks like that's Yoshikawa trying to go for it.
He does, and he gives Forster some room, but slows them down enough that we now have Murphy Nichols, who's gotten around Beans Forster. Jim Brewster working his way up as well in that number 5 machine, who's been so aggressive now with that side-by-side action going into the chicane, has now turned what was a 3-car battle into, well, about a 6 or 7-car battle here. Yoshikawa currently has the lead. Murphy Nichols, though, sitting center of track, having drivers on the left and on the right try to draft past them. Murphy Nichols falling back into 3rd. Forster finds his way back up into 2nd, about a car length and a half back from our leader. Nichols going to have to hold off Brewster and Justice, and Antonio Rice finding himself all the way back in 6th position now in that number 914 machine, back behind Josh Justice.
Yeah, that's the biggest surprise here out of all of this, Greg. But I think here for Rice, he's still going to be in a catbird seat as there goes Joshua Justice off in front of him. I was going to say he just needs to apply some pressure to the drivers in front of him and see if he can force a little bit of an error. And just like that, it happened to Joshua Justice.
Yeah, and you know, and we had seen a shot during qualifying of Justice going through there almost inch perfect, and it looks like Justice might have done just a bit too much damage to that car. He is now on the pit lane, and essentially for him, even though we've got a little bit less than 15 minutes remaining in this race, it might be done and dusted for him. As we've got Yoshikawa, Beans Forster, top 2, Murphy Nichols, Jim Brewster, and then Rice in the 914 machine. He's sitting a little bit back there, about 4 car lengths off the back of the 933 machine. But for the moment, it is a 3-car battle for the field for the lead coming into the chicane. Yoshikawa, Forster, Nichols.
Yeah, and I noticed there Nichols coming into the corner, he was a lot later on the brakes. Looks like he was able to carry a little bit more speed in there, and I wonder if that's indicative, as he runs a little bit wide there coming through West Bend, but I wonder if that's indicative of how he's feeling about the car. It is a little bit damaged. You can see some of the scuffs there on the front, but if he's got that confidence, that could play off in spades later on in this race.
And this is going to help him as we have our we have Forster and Yoshikawa going side by side down into Big Bend, and Nichols able to draft by the number 98 machine. So for the moment, move the number 5 machine back up into second, move Yoshikawa in the 98 back into third, and Brewster's still just kind of sitting there on an island, not able to make up a lot of ground there. Again, the Sam Posey straight, not the longest, but if you can get within about 2.5 car lengths coming down the downhill, it will certainly work out well for you. But now we've got Antonio Rice right on the back of the 933 machine as they go through West Bend, and we'll see how that theory plays out as they come down the hill. We'll see if the 914 machine pokes to the inside.
Well, it takes a little bit of a shallower line there coming off of the diving turn, and I wonder if that's going to hurt him a little bit if he just blunted his momentum. And yeah, indeed, he's going to stay in line right there and not go for the overtake. Now, he's still got 12 minutes left to go in this race, so it's not like he's got to get this move done now, but he doesn't want to let Brewster slow him down too much. We know he's got the speed to be able to keep up with the 3 drivers in front of him, and he doesn't want to let that gap get too large.
Yeah, and I think it's more a question of not having Brewster, having Brewster stunt his movement back up to that lead trio here, because as we're seeing the 231, the 5, and the 98 continue to not wait until the end of the race to continue to jockey for position, it might only take away that chance that Rice would have. But we see now here's Yoshikawa just on the last quarter of a lap going into the chicane, loses a lot of momentum heading up the hill, and now finds himself about 4 car lengths back from our leaders, Nichols and Forster, as they come under braking in the Big Bend.
Yeah, and they're going to stay in relatively single file order here. I think we're seeing a little bit of a calm before the storm, as it does look like Antonio Rice was able to get that move done. So now he's going to be in the catbird seat to try to move his way up ahead past Yoshikawa, and he's going to try to make this a 4-car fight up the front of the field. My question is Brewster able to hold on to the coattails here of the 914, or is he going to find himself falling back a little bit?
And that time through, yeah, I was just going to say that time through, for the moment, it looks as though the 933 starting to slowly lose track of the 914 machine. That last time by, we'll track the lap times here as they come across the line, and Brewster almost here, wow, almost 0.8 of a second. He loses to Rice, so a big difference there, and we can see as they come through Big Bend now almost 6 car lengths in arrears of the 914 machine.
Well, and look at the lap time that Rice was able to do on that last lap of 58.05. That, Greg, is the fastest lap of the race that we have seen thus far. So if you ever wanted an indication that he was being held up by Jim Brewster, there you have it.
There it is.
And there's another one. He's right on the back of this fight.
Yeah, in that last lap, he was almost 1/4 of a second faster than our top 3 drivers. And as they start to dive through, they come through West Bend and they start to dive down the hill and onto the Sam Posey straight, all 4 drivers in a row here, and jumping out to the inside almost immediately is Rice. Murphy Nichols moves over to blunt his advance, and as they come down under braking, you said it earlier here, where we saw Murphy Nichols much later on the brakes, much more confident on the other side of the track going into the chicane. But again here, going into turn 1, going into Big Bend, he was later on the brakes and is able now for the first time to work his way into the lead.
Well, if you've got that confidence in the car, if you know exactly what it's going to do, it doesn't matter what corner on the track you are. As there you can see, able to get it, but gets it wrong, hopping over the curb. Murphy Nichols around.
Oh, and takes all 3 of our leaders now off track as Murphy Nichols goes around. Yoshikawa, though, sneaking through as we had Forster and Rice all together at one point there in the chicane. Yoshikawa, the fourth car through. He is your new leader. Jim Brewster, you'd say what you want about the pace that he's carrying. Jim Brewster now, he is running in second, and he is side by side with our leader Yoshikawa as they come down into turn one in the Big Bend. And talk about being in the right place at the right time and taking advantage of other people's misery. And the 933 car, Jim Brewster, he is your new leader. Greenfield running in third. Let's take a look at the replay, DJ.
Yeah, and I think this was a little bit of a combination here of Murphy just going a little bit too late on the binders. And I'm sorry, Murphy, but the commentator's curse coming back to bite is it looks like there that he tried to trail brake a little bit, and I think the car locked up on him.
Yes.
That was that wiggle coming through there, is the brakes just bit on the car where he didn't want to. I'm going to take a look on board here in a little bit of time.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have a view now of from inside Murphy Nichols' car. We can see the corrections that he tries to dial in, and maybe we'll see some of that brake smoke with the lockup as he comes now under braking. Oh, and you can see as he tries to correct that big wiggle, and he was just behind the car the entire time as he got into that first turtle. And unfortunate for Rice and unfortunate for Forster as they both get collected. Now, luckily for them, though, DJ, our front drivers in this pack, they had enough of a gap on the rest of the field that Rice is actually still running in fourth and Forster in fifth, but I don't know if that's going to be consolation for them as they are considerably further back from Deacon Greenfield, who for the moment, as we've got still about 6.5 minutes remaining, actually, 6.5 minutes remaining, is currently sitting in that third position.
Yeah, there's still plenty of time to play here. And my question, though, is here for Rice and the rest of the cars that were involved in that incident, particularly Rice, though, is just how much damage on that 914. How is that affecting the car? If it's aerodynamics, it's not going to be too much to worry about. There is a little bit of aero effect in these cars, but I'd be worried about the suspension and the steering. So we took a look on board. It didn't look like that steering was cockeyed at all, but still, if you've just got a little bit out of sorts, that can be enough to completely throw off your race.
Yeah, and it's a little hard. We can see there, I believe, on both sides, both the left front wheel and the right front wheel poking out outside what is, well, in real life fiberglass, but here we'll call it steel. So it looks like there's quite a bit of aero damage to this car, but as you mentioned here, it doesn't really come into effect all that much except that little bit on the front straight as we jump back to the battle for the lead again with Jim Brewster, who started fifth tonight, finds himself our leader, working lap number 14, about to start lap number 15 here from Lime Rock Park. Nagase Yoshikawa, who was our pole sitter, now popping out to the inside, not quite close enough, but we'll see here is that we had that late move going in the Big Bend. The 933 machine able to hold off the 98 for the, but a big wiggle for the 933.
And I think the lucky thing there is that Yoshikawa had to get off of the loud pedal, had to check himself up a little bit as they went down into the corner, and that was going to be enough to prevent an overtake. But this number 98 looks like it's got speed, threatening here at this point. That was not a move to overtake. That was just trying to see if he could throw Brewster offline. He's trying to get into the head of the 933 here at this point.
Indeed he is. We know that the 98 car has the ability to be faster on track, and I think here, especially at Lime Rock, what you need to do is you need to be able to get drivers off their game, get them off the line, and make them compromise corner entries here, or in some cases corner exit. As the 98 machine, he gets a good run, but he chooses not to try to go deep down in the Big Bend. And I think we'll wait to see whether or not the 933 just opens up a gap for him into one of the corners. At this point, Brewster and Yoshikawa, they've got a 9-second advantage on Deacon Greenfield. So they've got some time maybe to play a little bit here as the clock now ticks under 4 minutes remaining. So somewhere around 5, maybe around 5 laps remaining here at Lime Rock for them. But now we can see where both Forster and Rice have caught up to the number 36 machine, Greenfield, who started 8th position, and he grabbed some curbing going into the chicane.
Yeah, grab some curbing there as they're going to be too wide coming down here through West Bend, the 231 and the 36, and looks like Rice just trying to be able to pick a line, figure out who is going to be faster here at this point. Very different lines, and we could set ourselves up for a 3 wide here coming down the Samposi Straight. No, it's going to be only 2 wide, as that is going to be Rice looking like he's going to have a little bit of a move here on Forster.
And as they come in the Big Bend, he manages to get around Beans Forster. Deacon Greenfield drops back to 5th position. And we've got Charles Vaccaro, another Spec Racer Ford racer, in that red number 221 machine. Had a little look to the inside on Greenfield. But, you know, you can see here, DJ, how just popping over those turtles in the chicane threw off Greenfield's run up the hill through West Bend and then down onto the front straight. As we jump back to the battle for the lead, speaking of West Bend, where we have a new leader, it's Nagase Yoshikawa. Our pole sitter this evening has managed to work his way around Jim Brewster. Now, as we are about to start lap number 18, with 2 minutes and 10 seconds remaining on the clock, so probably 3 laps to go.
And Brewster's going to immediately move to the inside there. Not a whole lot of defense from Yoshikawa. I think that's a relatively content pass. I think at this point, both of these drivers are probably starting to count back, figure out where you want to be on the track when that white flag flies.
Yeah, and it's not as easy as say going into 10A at Road Atlanta, where you know you can be heavy on the brakes as long as you're trailing coming out of turn 7 going into that braking zone. Here at Lime Rock Park, it is very, very different, as Yoshikawa was much cleaner through the chicane but could not get up alongside the 933, and perhaps he didn't want to, as he's still trying to determine which portions of the track he is indeed quicker than the 933, who's been showing some very good pace once he worked his way up into the lead. As we now cross the stripe, starting lap 20, and we now have, it looks like, 2 laps to go here at Lime Rock Park.
That looks like what it is here's the battle back for 3rd place right now. Rice doing a good job of holding off Beans Forster here at this point. I would have thought that maybe a little bit of straight line speed would have been compromised out of that 914, but clearly I am being proven wrong. Indeed,
is the 231 machine. Maybe looking a little bit more loose than the 914 coming through the right-hander and down the newly named Paul Newman straight, the very short straight there as they come into the chicane. And looks like now Brewster in the 933 machine. John, if we can jump back up to the lead pack here, it appears as though the 933 car in the last half lap or so has opened up a gap back to Yoshikawa, as we are now working the very last lap here at Lime Rock Park as they cross the stripe with all of about 5 seconds left on the clock. But the 933 machine now, I don't want to say, DJ, that this is an insurmountable lead if he can stay clean for this last lap, but it's going to be very difficult for Yoshikawa to make up that gap here.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to do. I've got to think that Yoshikawa maybe ran a little bit wide coming down through the diving turn, and that's what threw him off here at this point. Able to close down by about 3/10 there through the chicane, but I think that may be a little bit too little too late.
Yeah, and saw a little bit of a wiggle from Yoshikawa going into the chicane. So maybe everything that he gained under braking now gone as we come down into the diving turn. Yoshikawa does make up some ground, now only about a car length and a half back, but runs wide, coming and is in the grass, and can't get past him, can't take the win from the grass. And Jim Brewster, he is your winner. Yoshikawa holds on to 2nd. Coming in 3rd, Antonio Rice means Forster will finish just off the podium in 4th. Deacon Greenfield 5th. Charles Vaccaro comes home in 6th. And what could have been for John Vogel in the number 4 machine started 3rd tonight. He will come home in 7th. Steve Blethen will come home in 8th. Andrew Wozencroft finishes in 9th. and Mark Sherman crosses the stripe, rounding out the top 10.
Great race up and down through the order. Constant battles. Can you ask for anything more, Greg?
No, and you know, I was at a loss for words there for a moment as we saw Yoshikawa take to the grass coming out of the downhill, and for a moment I thought that he might have actually carried enough momentum to get past Brewster with 4 wheels in the grass. Of course, not able to get that done, but congratulations to Jim Brewster, our winner tonight in Spec Racer Ford. And DJ, we've got him sitting in the waiting room. Let's bring in our winner tonight, driver of the number 933 machine, and that is Jim Brewster.
Yes, indeed. And Jim, didn't exactly look like we were thinking you may not have the pace there, but the seas just kind of parted in front of you, and you were able to hold off on a fantastic win up at the front of the field.
Yeah, it's there's a trick if you keep it on the black parts.
All right, keep it on the black parts. I'm writing that down.
Well, I finished, in the Miata race, I was 10th, and I followed 2 guys that were off the track like 4 times in the last 3 laps. And, it's, as old guys, we have to resort to tricks,
Well, I wouldn't call that tricks at all. I'd call that some good racing. I mean, you were able to avoid that absolute melee that went on going up through the chicane. Talk me through that moment. How were you feeling, and what was your response going through there?
Well, you knew it was going to happen. I mean, you saw the way people were driving. You can just feel it. Now, sometimes I'm not fast enough to catch up and take advantage of it, but today they went far enough off track, and I have to thank the guy that I was fighting for first. He was extremely polite, and wasn't playing any bumper tag or rear quarter panel tapping like some folks do. So that was very nice. He was very polite, too polite. But it's funny because you figure out where in the track you get a gap and where you lose your gap, and you just hope it's in the right place.
Well, you certainly were able to pull that out. And then talk me through the battle coming through the last part of the race. It looked like you were kind of swapping around some positions there with second place. Were you counting back a little bit, trying to position yourself, or were you just trying to stay out ahead?
Oh, no, because once I was out ahead, occasionally he was getting me in a big bend, but I was coming through. I think I was getting him down through the downhill, so then even when he got me, I was real close and had a good run, and I was able to get back past. And then, so I think the one place I was a little bit better was through the downhill, coming onto the main straight, and you know how critical it is for setting up the pass in Big Bend. But I'd just like to say, I grew up at this track. I was first at this track when I was like 9 months old. My dad raced Emerald growing up here, and I haven't been here in a long time. I live down in Virginia now, but it's really exciting whenever I can win a race here at Lime Rock, just because, like I said, I grew up as a kid. I was a little kid spectating back when Lime Rock had trees and shade, and as a little kid I was always educating the adults around me, the spectators, of what was going on track, what classes they were, who the fast guys were, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's how I got to love racing, and now sim racing really is the perfect answer for a non-greasy mechanic guy like me.
Well, I think you and I have a very similar origin story there. There are stories about me when I was about 4 years old doing the same thing at Indianapolis. But Jim, a win here on the day. Who would you like to thank? Who makes this possible?
Well, I've worked with Stevie with the V's. I work real hard with the V's, Weekend Warrior V's, and of course I do the surfs. And I just am so excited that SCCA is finally. I was so excited for the runoffs, and I just really would like to see SCCA, get serious about an esports division. I think it's the future. I think they love their second and third and fourth generation racers. Well, they can't go on track till whatever 15 or 16. This is where they can be, and not to mention all the racers can be here in the off season. But I really hope that the wheels get in motion. SCCA with Stevie Ray get an esports division, and to me, I think it should be part of the driver training. I mean, I think there's so much to be learned here, so efficiently, so cheaply, that I think this is a big part of the sport. It should be all one big happy sport.
I couldn't agree more with you, Jim, but great to see you out there today. I love the words you're saying about esports, and congratulations again.
Thank you. And you guys, my sister watches from Argentina at the surf Weekend Warrior race every single week and sends me a full page of comments, and some of the comments are about you guys. We all love that you're all part of this team, and we love the work you do.
Thank you so much, Jim. That was Jim Brewster, your victor here in the Spec Racer Fords.
And you know, DJ, I think I owe Jim an apology, because I think right before that melee in the chicane, I mentioned how Jim did not have the pace of our top 3 drivers. And if he had the pace of our top 3 drivers, he would have never, I don't think ever would have been able to been in a position to take that win. It was a great run from him, and once he got out into the lead, he really ran a very strong, very smart race. So I want to congratulate Jim Brewster, and also want to thank him for all the great words that he said. And hopefully we'll see the SCCA dig in a little bit more into the esports and their members who have made it such a priority. All right, so let's wrap things up for the evening here, DJ, and 2 spectacular races, 2 great finishes from Lime Rock Park, both in the MX-5s, the Spec Miatas, and also in the Spec Racer Fords. And we are going to be back, as I mentioned early on in the show, we're going to be heading about 4 hours west from Connecticut to northern New York, to Watkins Glen International. And we are going to have our Spec Racer Fords return for their 4th race of the season, and our Formula 4s, the iRacing 04 chassis, they will be back as well. They're going to have their 3rd race of the season next Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Apex Racing TV. And so for DJ Clark and Jonathan Grabowski, I'm Greg Ginsburg. We'll see you in 8 days, everybody. Have a great week.